Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And if you are on YouTube, make sure you click the bell so they notify you every time a new episode goes up. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game every single year? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create your wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like Mike and Lansdale, then check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today, and our loyalty rewards program is in effect. $15 a month contributors, you get to co-host an episode of one of our shows. $7.50 a month contributors, you get entered into a drawing to also co-host an episode of one of our shows. So, hello everybody, welcome to this live episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. We are going live a half an hour before the end of Raw because we just have too much to talk about. And quite honestly, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow night on SmackDown. These are the go-home episodes ahead of Extreme Rules. There's a lot to talk about before whatever finishes up tonight and whatever happens tomorrow. So let's get to that first. If you are new to the Pro Wrestling Podcast, make sure you check out our homepage at frowrestling.com. See what's coming to the show. See what kind of questions you have for us. And then bring those questions with you to our live shows. Call into our sound off line, 267-642-1160. Give us a text. Give us a voice message, a talk to text service. You tell us what you want us to talk about. We'll get a text version of it, and then we can address that in a current or future episode. Or the best way to get in touch with us right now, whatever streaming service you're using to listen to the show, click on the chat function for that service and give us your questions, your comments, or anything you want us to talk about. So, before we get into what I had planned for tonight, I gotta throw this out there because, as you know, I get ready to launch our shows whenever we do our shows. I always like to see what is the latest news on all the sites. And right now, the word coming out tonight is Impact Wrestling is in trouble because they are losing some incredible talent. And this news broke earlier tonight on eWrestling News and Wrestling Inc. that LAX is reportedly done with Impact Wrestling. They are one of the most decorated tag teams in Impact Wrestling history. Keep in mind, I'm not talking about TNA wrestling history. There are tag teams that have had more substantial credentials than LAX if you go all the way back to the inception of TNA wrestling. But Santana and Ortiz, this version of LAX, are the longest reigning Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions, 261 days. They are the longest reigning combined Tag Team Champions across their 4 championship reigns, 662 days. They have been a focal point of the tag team division. Now, we said in a previous episode that both WWE and All Elite Wrestling are very much interested in both of them, and you got to look at it from a couple different perspectives. First off, WWE moving the Street Profits, clearly they're pushing to move them to Raw permanently. They need to replenish the supply of talent at NXT. That is one way to look at it from the WWE perspective. The other thing WWE is trying to do is to buy up anybody and everybody who's got an open contract, and these guys would be a solid addition to any roster. So that's there for WWE. All Elite Wrestling, they want to cultivate a really solid, legitimate tag team division, and that's why they're interested in LAX. So LAX has a lot of options. That's not even counting Ring of Honor, where they could easily go and have an incredible program with the Briscoes, or going over to New Japan Pro Wrestling and dueling it out with the Guerrillas of Destiny. I would like to see any of those things happen. I wouldn't mind seeing them get in the ring with the Young Bucks. I'd like to see them in there with the Revival. So it really doesn't matter where they go. There's a great match waiting for them, and I wish them nothing but luck and great success in their future endeavors. Along with them, the other big free agent we're going to talk about tonight is Johnny Impact. Johnny Mundo, Johnny Nitro, John Hittigan, whatever you want to call him. He's a free agent. His contract ran out a couple weeks ago at Impact Wrestling. He agreed to stay with the promotion to end his program with Rich Swann, which took place the other night at Slammiversary. He lost to Rich Swann, closed up shop for Impact Wrestling. Now, he's got all these options at his disposal. Let's be honest. He's been to WWE. He's done a short stint with Ring of Honor, a match or two here and there. Did the Lucha Underground thing. Does he want to go back to WWE and become just another one of the mid-card guys who take an Intercontinental or a United States Championship here and there? Maybe, maybe not. I don't see him ever being in a position to challenge somebody like Brock Lesnar, Maybe Seth Rollins. I wouldn't mind seeing that match. I actually would be very much into that, but I don't see that happening. What I really think is going to happen here is you're looking at a guy who could walk into All Out and really pop the crowd again if he signs with All Elite Wrestling. He would be a major get for them. And when we talked about who would go with AEW versus re-signing with WWE and all those conversations, John Hennigan or Johnny Impact was not really a part of that discussion because he was with Impact Wrestling. Well, he's no longer there. So he's not somebody we've had a lot of conversation about. I actually think it would be a fantastic idea for him to go to AEW just because, yes, I know they've got a deep roster, and they're doing a really good job of creating some really interesting matches that we haven't seen before. But you add one premier talent like Johnny Impact, you've got new matches with tons of people. Johnny Impact, Kenny Omega. Johnny Impact, either one of the Young Bucks against Cody, which I'm sure has been done in WWE, but it's been a while. And anybody else they want to put him against. MJF would be a great match with Johnny Impact. So I'm curious to see where his next landing spot is. Is he going to become Johnny Elite? I mean, I can easily see that happening. We'll have to wait and see. But free agent he is, and it should be interesting to see how things work out for him. Now, Impact Wrestling, sticking with the theme here a little bit. One, they are hoping to announce a new television home. They wanted to do it this week at the tapings. They wanted to be on Access Television where New Japan is and Women of Wrestling is. And I think that deal may actually get done. Their product right now is ridiculously solid. Okay? I'm not trying to dump on WWE and AEW or Ring of Honor or New Japan, but Impact Wrestling, with the limited viewership they've been getting, 10,000 people a week on Pursuit Channel, 10,000 or so more on Twitch, they're not getting the viewership, but they might be putting out the best wrestling product in the world. And I said that, in the world right now. They're being very creative. They're creating new stars. They're doing things that a lot of other companies aren't willing to do, which is put different people over who have never really had a chance to shine, despite the fact that they may not have the biggest build-up. For example, when LAX leaves and drops the tag team titles to the North are not an established tag team. They're not somebody who's been on the scene for 5 years and they're finally winning the tag titles. They're relatively unproven. You know, I know Ethan Page is a stud, but that doesn't mean he's got the kind of reputation that should be counted on to carry the tag team division. But the Impact Wrestling is letting him do it because of the quality and the workload that the North can put on. So they are doing some revolutionary stuff. They just did their show this weekend with Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. That show went over to great fanfare. Really great show. So check that stuff out if you get a chance. Go onto Reality of Wrestling's webpage and check out some of the stuff that happened there. They just signed D'Lo Brown to a contract extension. They were talking about that last week. He's got a new 5-year deal as a producer and an agent and creative mind for that company. So there's a lot going on with them. And I really feel like people may be missing the boat on them because they're not tuning in. Even at Slammiversary, you know, we kind of had a feeling that Brian Cage would retain the World Championship over Michael Elgin. What nobody expected to see was Michael Elgin starting to attack Don Callis, and then you see that a masked version of Rhino jumps into the ring, gores him, because Rhino's still under WWE contract. He wore a mask. He gores Michael Elgin, setting up a program for the future. His contract runs out July 17th. Rumor is WWE's not going to press this issue. They knew he was leaving. He's working out his contract and sitting at home getting his downside guarantee. And Rhino has a lot left to offer in a much more prominent and more important position than what WWE was giving him. So I think that's a great feud for him to go in and have a program with Elgin right away. And he's somebody that he could put Elgin over. And it gives Elgin somewhat of a rub, because I think Impact Wrestling fans still remember Rhino from his run as world champion there and being a solid contributor there, and that's something WWE wasn't giving him. So Impact Wrestling all over the place tonight in the news, doing a lot of really, really cool things. Want to give an update on Jon Moxley's AEW contract. The word is that he has an out clause. That's something you hear about in like basketball, you know, Kevin Durant signing a 2-year deal and having a 1-year out clause or something like that. Jon Moxley can leave the company after 1 year if he is not satisfied with the creative direction of his character. That's huge. I mean, in all seriousness, some people, the people who are swearing there's an inside coup going on, are saying that Moxley's working for WWE. He went in there to infiltrate the company and then bolt in a year. I don't think that's the case. I actually think he's probably enjoying the creative freedom he's got there, and I hope he keeps going with that. So, but he does have the out clause. So let's hope, you know, look, if he does really well in New Japan Pro Wrestling, maybe he wants to give Ring of Honor a whirl in a year. I think it really depends on what AEW does with their new television deal, with some of these other shows So far, their product is killer. If you got to see the Fighter Fest, got to see the pictures on Twitter of Jon Moxley's back, the way he had all the scarring and cuts and scrapes and all that all over his back. That's some intense stuff. So hopefully AEW is able to solidify themselves and they'll stay with them, but we'll have to wait and see. But they are clearly having an effect on WWE program because WWE is sending a non-PG-13 message. Whether you're talking about last week with all the things we saw on Raw, a little bit on SmackDown, Kofi Kingston flipping the bird to Samoa Joe. We haven't seen that since Stone Cold time frame. You know, the whole way the shows went down on Raw last week, they started off Raw again this week, going right into the action, not this half hour of talking nonsense that people have been tired of for years. I love it. And I love that we're getting this because of Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff being brought in for their executive positions. WWE knows their backs are against the wall. We got to find a way to keep viewership, retain in-house attendance. Otherwise, you have no company to begin with. AEW, when they announced the ticket sales for All Out, they had 135,000 people in the ticket queue. They could have sold out Dallas, Texas Stadium. And I know people think that's ludicrous. It's not. They really could have done that. They didn't think they could, or they'd have booked a bigger venue. I don't know what Tony Khan's thinking. He better book the next show. Better be an incredible show, and they better book a huge stadium and prove to WWE that they're legit and they need to be taken seriously. But that being said, WWE pushing this non-PG feel is only a good thing for business. Look, I get it. There's kids watching, family show, publicly traded company. But at the end of the day, your stockholders don't matter if your stock starts to drop because you're not getting ratings. And that's something people are afraid of. Your stock will plummet if Fox cancels you because you don't bring in the ratings. You have to do what people want to see. People want to see a more edgy, more realistic product. And that's something, if they get away from the PG-13, they can start to do. I'm not telling you to go full, TV 14 like AEW is going to do, or even worse. I'm just saying every now and again you need to have something a little more adult so that the people who are the main audience that you're catering to find your product interesting and they find it different, not the same stuff week in and week out. Okay? Getting on to more news, we all know now by now the Good Brothers signing their 5-year deals with WWE. I think that's a great get for WWE. I already think it's a flop for them as characters. I mean, we already watched tonight on Raw. We've seen Gallows and Anderson both lose to Ricochet. If you're signing new 5-year deals and you're coming in and you're unhappy with your creative direction the previous couple years, you would think you'd get booked in a more prominent program in a more substantial way and win. Instead, they're just jobbing out the Ricochet now. Now, I don't have a problem with that. Ricochet's an incredible talent. WWE wants to push him as the attraction for the young people. But let's be honest. Like, what are you doing with Gallows and Anderson if you're just going to keep jobbing them out? What, are they going to spend 5 years playing second fiddle to AJ Styles? That doesn't work for me either. If they're going to turn on AJ Styles, they did that a couple years ago. That's over. That's old. I just hope they do something sensible. Carl Anderson is an incredible talent. Let's be honest. Carl Anderson was the leader of the Bullet Club before AJ Styles was. So let's look at things for what they could be. Carl Anderson could be an incredible contributor to the singles division, not the tag team. I mean, could do that too, but just saying. Is Goldberg finished with WWE? That's the big question. Last week, it was very clear in his Twitter post that he just wants to do something to get the bad taste of that last match out of his mouth. I think he wants another match. Who he would go against, not quite sure. I'm sure he'd love to have a rematch with The Undertaker. There's conversation about Drew McIntyre. There's a few people who said there's a few other talents that they would love to see him in the ring with. I don't care who Goldberg gets in the ring with. I'm going to tell you this. For those people who hate on that match against The Undertaker, you take a guy the size of Bill Goldberg cracking his skull into a metal post and finishing a match that normally probably would have been a 2 to 3 minute match. They went like 12 minutes with a concussion. Give the guy some credit. He tried to put on a show. He felt horrible about the concussion, and he tried to do something great for people. You know what? I'm willing to see that any day of the week. Bring him back. Put him against Randy Orton, the Legend Killer, or put him against somebody who can bring some excitement to a match with him. I think he's actually better now than back in the day, because I think he's trying harder now. Back then, it was like effortless. Walk out, squash somebody, leave. Now he actually wants to deliver a performance for the fans, and people need to open their mind to that and think about that. By the way, somebody else coming back to the wrestling world, Damian Sandow is now going to be the Millennium Killer, and he's coming back to wrestle Combat Sports up in Canada. He's coming back to work with Santino Marella's group. I hope he comes back to wrestling full-time, because I miss his character already. What an incredible talent. He did that little stint with Impact Wrestling. That was a flop. They really didn't know how to use him. And then he disappeared for a while trying to pursue movies and TV. But I think he misses the wrestling world, and hopefully he comes back sooner than later. Booker T. There's a little bit of controversy about All Out. Came out last week. The Booker T was supposed to be at All Out, not as like a backstage thing, but a part of the show. And I guess he's oblivious to the wrestling world, had no idea that there's like a full-blown war brewing between WWE and All Elite Wrestling. So he's backed out of All Out. He's backed out of StarCast 3. And it's interesting that he was in that predicament to begin with. I don't think he could possibly be that disconnected that he didn't know that there was an issue going on. But apparently he booked himself where he probably shouldn't have. He's got a Legends contract. You can't just go booking yourself for the rival promotion. So we'll have to wait and see. Rey Mysterio comes back tonight on Raw. I'm disappointed that he comes back and gets squashed by Bobby Lashley to come back. Like, what is this? Is Rey Mysterio like the new RVD of WWE? They come in, they get squashed by everybody. They're just there for their name brand recognition. Because let's face it, Rey Mysterio doesn't need that. You know, if he was helping Aero Lucha, where I'm a minority stakeholder, I invested my money into Aero Lucha. You can too. Check it out. But he was working with Aero Lucha, trying to create his own company. Lucha Underground, he did some good stuff. He would be better suited in a company that would actually use him as a top star. Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor. Instead, he's in WWE where they're going to keep having him job out to people, and I don't get that. Now, I know he beat Samoa Joe, took the United States title. I get it. But he lost to Joe at WrestleMania. Then he had to relinquish his title, got beat down by Joe the night he relinquished his title. He gets squashed by Bobby Lashley tonight. Like, what message are you sending? How are we supposed to ever get behind any of the baby faces if they all just get beat down every week? Ricochet tonight getting beat down by the Club again. Like, come on. We need some real over baby face. Yeah, when The Rock was a baby face, you never got the sense that he was in danger of getting squashed. Stone Cold, he would never get jobbed out to anyone. That's what we need, is people who you already know there's no chance they job out, and then you put them against somebody else who also has that same feel. Stone Cold versus The Rock kind of feel. Create some big stars that nobody thinks can lose and put them against each other. This nonsense, Mysterio's a joke. Like, he's going to lose every week he's on. And if he doesn't, it's going to be the fluke. You watch. Next time it'll be Baron Corbin, or it'll be somebody else, some other new young star that he could put over. That's what RVD did the last time he was in WWE. Thankfully, he's at Impact now, but he's still jobbing out. He lost to Moose at Slammiversary. At least that one I get, because Moose is on pace to be the next Impact World Champion. If I was booking, that's what I would do. But we're going to move on. Does WWE fear the All Elite Wrestling key demographic? And what we're talking about there is the 18 to 49-year-old crowd. They're concerned especially about the 18 to 25-year-old people, how much they're going to appreciate AEW more than WWE. And that's why you're seeing some people push like Ricochet, who could connect with a younger audience. That's something WWE is clearly concerned of. Sources behind the scenes in WWE have admitted that's something they're concerned with, especially with the move to Fox. So WWE's got to do something. That's why I think we're going to this PG-13, going away from that a little bit and trying to get a little more edgy so we can bring back some of those people who we don't want to see, if you're WWE at least, you don't want to see going to the rival promotion. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But definitely an area of concern for WWE. There's a word out there that why WWE refused to hire Triple H as an executive for Raw or SmackDown. We all know that they went to Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, and that the reason Triple H was not given either one of those positions is because at some point when Vince steps down, Triple H is the heir apparent to take over the company, and if he were to become an executive now and not do a good job, it would make the transition later much more challenging if he has to take over for Vince. You want to make sure it's a nice, smooth transition. You make sure that everybody's happy with him. And if he stays with NXT, which is an incredibly expanding brand and doesn't have any flop or potential to flop on Raw or SmackDown, then he is secure and safe for the takeover of the company when Vince decides to step down. So interesting to note that WWE actually had that whole thought process. AJ Lee in the news this week talking about a return to wrestling. One of those never say never scenarios. She has said in the past that she was done because of injuries and whatnot. But this conversation, she seemed much more motivated to think about coming back at some time in the future. Money talks, man. Let's be honest. You walk into AJ Lee right now and say, listen, we'll give you $3 million. You do 5 shows. I guarantee you she takes it. I really do. but WWE has to swallow the pill, the CM Punk pill. CM Punk probably has to swallow a little bit of WWE pill to get her back there. Unless they both want to go to All Elite Wrestling, I'd be okay with that as well. I just want to get her in the ring. She's one of the most talented ladies of the last 20 years, and we lost her way too soon. And that's all directly linked to the CM Punk nonsense. So hopefully WWE sees the error in their ways and tries to correct things so we can get her back in a ring. Kevin Owens right now, it looks like he's being strategically positioned to be a top babyface on SmackDown. Eric Bischoff is a huge fan of his. I think he could play the role very well, and he's been the bad guy too long. They were going to do the babyface thing after WrestleMania, but then with people getting hurt and different things coming up, they needed a heel, and he became the heel. So, you know, I think they wanted to do this all along, and now maybe he'll evolve his character just a little bit. You know, this feud coming up with Dolph Ziggler should be interesting. I don't know that we've seen him in this kind of role. That's what we're being told is the reason they gave him the stunner as his finisher, is so they could be more fan-friendly and more get that positive babyface response from the crowd. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I want to talk a little bit about the Mike and Maria Kanellis situation. She's pregnant again. They do the angle on TV. Bury Mike Kanellis, which I think was a terrible idea. This week on Raw, she's sending him off to get pickles and ice cream and all this stereotypical prego mom nonsense. I hate it. Mike Kanellis is an incredible, incredible talent. He deserves a great spot in the roster. He has slimmed down so much he'd have to be on 205 Live at this point, or maybe a cruiserweight, a United States or Intercontinental champion. He is not a world champion contender, but I would like to see him do something more substantial. Now, I understand. Look, I've heard mixed reports. WWE knew about her pregnancy. They didn't know about her pregnancy. They knew it when they signed a contract. They didn't know. I don't care. I just want to see them use talent to the best of their ability. And Mike Kanellis is clearly better than anything we've seen in WWE from him so far. Kenta talking about why, the former Hideo Itami, why he chose New Japan over going to Dragon Gate or Noah or any of those places over in Japan. And it was real clear to him when he left WWE, he felt he didn't get to showcase the kind of wrestling that he wants to be known for, more strong stylish, and he felt that New Japan Pro Wrestling was the place to do that. So that's why he chose it. He already has gone into the G1 Climax, picking up his first win, defeating Kota Ibushi, which is unheard of for someone to come in and do that fast. Ibushi major over with the crowd. So I was really surprised to see that in the opening night at their Dallas show. To be perfectly honest with you, that Dallas show was incredible. If you didn't see it, go back and find it on YouTube. Wait for Access Television to play it again, but that was off the chain. And here's the thing. If you go to my blog at Infro's Corner on FroWrestling.com, you'll see I have a whole article posted. It is also going up on TSJ101sports.com, one of the greatest news sites for wrestling and all sports-related topics. Check that out sometime. But my article is going up, and it's talking about the G1 Climax because the history of the tournament, people don't think about what the effect of the tournament is. They talk about the history, who's won, how many times they've won, who's cashed in for a championship match at Wrestle Kingdom, etc., etc. That's all fine and dandy, but something that the G1 Climax does that no other tournament in the world of wrestling does is it creates new stars instantaneously. Watching the opening night in Dallas, you got to see one of the best matches of the year so far between Will Ospreay and Lance Archer. And Archer picked up the surprise win over Ospreay. Ospreay has been getting closer and closer to the heavyweight division. He is a future world champion in New Japan, I firmly believe. But Lance Archer, I didn't expect to have this much success already. Now, I get it. He's only had one match, but you could never have convinced me he was going to beat Will Ospreay. Not as over as Ospreay is right now. And what's happening is you're seeing where Kenta, Jon Moxley, Lance Archer, Will Ospreay, these younger, not necessarily younger in age, chronologically speaking, but as far as main event talents on the singles roster being young, are getting over. And they're getting over in a big way with the crowd. And that's a beautiful thing. And WWE should take note, because WWE spends a lot of money on NXT takeover events and stuff, and those are fantastic. But the rest of the NXT roster gets very limited screen time and very little mainstream prime time opportunities. The G1 Climax, everybody in the tournament, all 20 of them, are going to get exposure. So I don't care if you're, Kazuchika Okada, who defeated Tanahashi night one, or if you're talking about Jon Moxley or something like that, all the way down to somebody as simple as Jeff Cobb or Toji Makabe, who really get the opportunity to shine because of the G1 Climax. And you can literally create a main event star almost instantaneously with the way they booked that show. So definitely, if you have not yet, check out what's happened so far in the G1, and then keep your eye on it. Access Television is great with their coverage. Watch the matches. They're incredible. And I hope WWE takes a lesson from this, because they really do put on such a unique show, and a very different show, that WWE could really stand to learn something about how to produce television in the 2019 wrestling universe. Because they seem to think they know how to do everything perfectly. Clearly they haven't been lately, or ratings would be much higher. Aleister Black, his opponent, is going to be announced tomorrow night. And before they do that, I wanted to just throw this out there. The word is it was going to be Cesaro. And I think, I get it. Cesaro, you're trying to reestablish as a star. He's in a tag team for all these years. Now you got to get him back out and recreate this single star. But I'd much rather see Aleister Black against Randy Orton. Now, Orton apparently is out with a little bit of a neck injury right now, but he should be cleared to come back by the time of the pay-per-view. I would much rather see Aleister Black and Randy Orton. So my snap prediction about what we're going to see tomorrow night on SmackDown is that we're going to see Randy Orton and Aleister Black, not Cesaro. They've hyped it up too much with this Aleister Black challenging this mystery opponent, so I'm hoping that's what we get to see. Two little tidbits of sad news. Every once in a while we have to do these. I'm never happy about it. Jacques Rougeau Sr., the patriarch of the Rougeau family, wrestler all the way back in the 60s and 70s. Go look up his matches. Great talent. Produced his sons all competed, whether it's Jacques, Ramon, all those guys, Armin. They all competed in WWE, had great careers. I think nobody bigger than Jacques Rougeau. He played the character of the Mountie. He was in the tag team. He won the tag team championships as the Quebecers. Went to WCW. Actually has a clean pinfall victory in Toronto over Hulk Hogan. His kids did very well for themselves, and that's all based on his influence. And he passed away this week, tragically, at the age of 89. And our thoughts and condolences are with the Rougeau family and all their fans. And we wish them nothing but peace and serenity at this time of challenge. At the same time, Perro Aguayo, a huge superstar in the world of Lucha Libre, passed away this week as well, 73 years old. And the owner of CMLL, it's just a bad week for international wrestling. Chris Jericho putting out an incredibly emotional video on Instagram and Twitter, saying goodbye to the owner of CMLL, being the best one of the best promoters he ever worked for, and the first man to ever give him a chance back in 1993. It's just a tough week. Loss of so many really great people and legends from the past, and it's never a happy thing, but I hope people look back on their careers and things of that nature and really think positively of the things they did during their career and appreciate what their contributions to the industry really are. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down all the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce all the music and sound effects we use in our shows. Today's podcast sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the page to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, maybe university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. If you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, like I said earlier, go to www.tsj101sports.com for their latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Check out my blog, In Fro's Corner, located at frowrestling.com. And while you're at it, support independent wrestling. Click our indie events tab on frowrestling.com. Check out a show coming to an area near you. Get up close with the talent. It's a very unique experience, much more intimate than the WWE setting, and it's something that you would really love, and it really is a family feel. So check that out sometime. Until next time, everybody, take care, have a great night, and we're getting ready to see the end of Raw. Hopefully they kill it here. Welcome Paul Heyman to the Raw team, because we can already feel his effects affecting the show tonight. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.